Hello, Tim. Can someone hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. My name is Kelvin Jomo. I will be a moderator with my colleague Jonathan Chiwai during this particular webinar. And I want to solemnly welcome you to this Sustainable Africa webinar, climate change series. This is the first episode, and we are glad to have you here, our speakers and our participants. It is my uh, prayer that we will have to benefit from this discussion, and our speakers are ready to talk to us. We have every opportunity to ask questions. We will have a keynote speech. We will also have a panel, and we'll have interludes of questions and answers. So we are free to discuss these matters about climate change. We know that climate change is an emotive situation right now. We are experiencing climate disruptions across the world. You can see even I'm speaking from Kenya actually, and you, for those who have observed on social media, there is a lot of rain and floods, especially in the capital city and other parts of the country. And also Nigeria is experiencing high um, temperatures, and across I know the places you have experienced the pinch of climate change. So we have our guests, and I'm happy I've seen Abelu, um, I have seen Faraja, um, others are joining here. So at this juncture I will pass this button to my colleague Jonathan Chuhai to say an intro word, then we begin immediately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelvin. It's quite a pleasure to be part of this webinar where I know that we are going to receive and get some of the unpacking of climate change. And it is my prayer that after this webinar, we'll also have the tools so that we can take the climate action. My name is Jonathan, and I'm from Zimbabwe. I am part of the group or an organization that is called Sustainable Action Team that is working mainly with the marginalized grassroots level communities to tackle issues of climate change. Um, I have also had the privilege of living in Kenya for the past 2 years, and it's also my concern that not only are we talking of climate change, but we are also experiencing climate change as evidenced by the floods that are happening in Kenya right now. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Back to you.
Very, very nice, Jonathan. That will be my colleague in this webinar. We Our webinar, as all are aware, we just to recap is we are going to understand climate change in Africa, climate change challenges and impacts across the regions, especially in Africa. So we have about five keynote speakers, and I will introduce the first speaker so that we begin. That is Olumide Idowu, and I will briefly uh, give intro about a bio about Olumide Idowu. He is a climate change activist from Nigeria with over 13 years of experience, a co-founder of the International Climate Change Development Initiative, aiming to create climate smart generations in Africa and addresses development disparities. Olumide, if you're here, kindly take the floor. Olumide, we'll have to wait for him. I know he will join us in a moment. We'll have the second keynote speaker, and he's called 𝐷𝐿𝐒. Is a PhD holder, and I'll give a small bio about 𝐷𝐿𝐒, environmental advocate and the regional safety coordinator at Kano Electricity Distribution Company, 𝐘𝐒, currently pursuing his PhD in natural resource management and climate change at Bayero University, Kano. If 𝐷𝐿𝐒, you're here, kindly take the floor. Fine. We'll have the next Bright Kosi appear. Actually, I've seen you here. Sorry, I've seen Gakua Muhammad Elia. Can you hear me? Gakua, unmute your mic and talk to us. Well, Bright Kosi appear. Thank you so much. I can see you. Kindly allow me to tell our participants a few words about you before you start. Bright Kosi appear is a recent graduate of natural resource management from NAST, Ghana, focusing on agroforestry. Sorry, Wakua, kindly mute your mic.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, Wakua, can hear you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Nice to have you all here.
Good morning. Welcome.
As formally introduced, I am 𝐷𝐿𝐒 Muhammad Elia by name, a PhD candidate in Bayero University, Kano, undergoing a program Natural Resource Management and Climate Change. I would like to chip in just climate change, despite its low contribution to greenhouse, that's talking about the continent of Africa, despite its low contribution to greenhouse gas emission, it remains the most vulnerable continent under all climate scenarios above 1.5 degrees Celsius. Despite what this point is saying is, despite the low contribution of greenhouse emission by the continent, that is our continent, Africa, it remains the most vulnerable continent under all climate scenario, that is above 1.5 degrees Celsius. We all know how climate change impacts our activities ranging from agriculture, health, and other sectors, but these are the most affected sectors in the continent, that is agriculture and health. But we have other sectors, that is Africa faces exponential collateral damage, that is forcing system risks to its economics, infrastructure, investment, water and food system, public health, agriculture, livelihoods, treating to undo its modest high tense of extreme poverty. So this is another point that is closely related to the first point I've made mention of. we have factors that contribute to Africa's climate change vulnerability, which are the 95% rain-fed agriculture globally. That is our dependency on agriculture. A large, a large share of agriculture in GDP and employment adds to vulnerability, as do other weather-sensitive activities such as fishing and other agricultural activities. Well, here with me is I have some points with regards to natural climate change solutions. But before we go to it, is there any, let me see. I'm coming, please. 1 minute. Are you with me?
Yes, Yakuwa, we listen to you. You can fast track
Oh,
the conversation.
yes, I have some instances. Uh, I guess I had one of you introducing himself from Kenya. For instance, as Africa, Kenya has high vulnerability to the impact of climate change. The main climate hazards include drought, floods, as rainfall will likely become more intense and less predictable. Climate models also predict that temperature will rise by zero point 0.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, which we've been experiencing this in the past and recently also. In the informal urban settlement of Nairobi, the urban heat island effect adds to to the problems as it creates even warmer ambient temperature. This is due to the home construction, materials, lack of ventilation, sparse green space, and poor access to electricity, that is electrical power and other services. The African Union has put forward 47 goals and corresponding action in 2014 drafts report to combat and mitigate climate change in Africa. The International Monetary Fund suggests in 2021 that $50 billion might be necessary to cover this cost of climate change adaptation in Africa. Greenhouse gas emission, impact on the natural environment, temperature and weather changes, observed surface temperature have generally increased over Africa since the late 19th century to the early 21st century by about 1 degree Celsius, but locally, much as 3 degrees Celsius for minimum temperature in the Sahel at the end of dry season. That is, we know how the temperature is in the Sahelian region, that is North African regions, uh, Tunisia, Algeria, and the likes. That is the northern part of Africa. The current climate models, as summarized in the IPCC 16 assessment report, predict that increase in frequency and intensity of drought and heavy rainfall events. They also predict decreases in mean precipitation almost everywhere in Africa with medium to high confidence. However, local rainfall, trend to social climatic interaction are likely to manifest in the mixed pattern. Therefore, converging the impact of climate change will vary across the continent. In rural areas, rainfall pattern influence water usage. Also, and lastly, a study in 2019 predicted an increase in dry spell length during the wet seasons, and increased extreme rainfall rate in Africa. In other words, both ends of Africa. The research found that most climate models will not be able to capture the extent of these changes because they are not convection permitting at the coastal grid scales. So what this all these findings are just are trying to like pinpoint or come out with the effect or how the continent of Africa is being affected by the global threat of climate change. And I guess we all know this. We are just repeating what is like what has been done in it's just all that is needed with regard to climate change is action. All these symposium series of webinars, I'm very sorry to say, it's good we converge and discuss serious issues that affect our planet earth environment, but actually all that is needed is action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Akua. Thank you. That is very an informed and insightful ideas that you've given us. And stay put. We will also need you during the panel and other question and answer session. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Right now, we are going straight to the next keynote speaker. I didn't say that you kindly structure your keynote speech to about 8 minutes so that we are able to uh, proceed well in the confines of time. So the next speaker is Otto Shaler, and I will give a brief bio about Sheila so that our participants get to know.
Okay. Sorry, Kelvin, to interject. To our keynote speakers, would you kindly give us your brief in at least 5 minutes, because we are kind of trying to manage our time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that very important note. So Sheila Otto is a dedicated lawyer and an environmentalist known for her advocacy in climate change initiatives. She founded schools in climate CBO where she educates students um, about climate change and promotes sustainable practices. Sheila also volunteers with Teach for Uganda, inspiring future leaders in environmental stewardship. Sheila, kindly proceed. I have seen here. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, moderator. Good morning, everyone. I hope it's a good morning wherever you are. My name is
Yes.
Sheila Top from Uganda. And since we have very few minutes, allow me go straight to my presentation. About our theme, it's a very important theme, understanding climate change and its impacts. And we always hear climate change, but I would want to believe that other people don't know what climate change is. So I would kindly dive into that. Climate change is just temporarily the changes in weather patterns and our global temperatures. Sometimes it's natural, but to a very big extent, it has been confirmed that human beings or human activities amount to climate change. And what are some of these human activities? We have deforestation, we have industrialization, all those are leading to climate change or the amounting to what we are seeing right now. And how is this affecting us? As we can all witness, Africa bests, I won't say 90% on agriculture. Imagine the changes on weather patterns, the changes in temperature, increased temperature, everything is just not stagnant. Imagine it on agriculture. We're not going to be sure when we are supposed to plant and when we are supposed to harvest our crops. So this is going to affect our livelihood since we are so dependent on agriculture. Then we live in a world where we always say water is life. And as a cause or as an attribute of climate change, having a rise in temperature definitely leads to high evaporation rates on our water bodies, leading to the water bodies drying up. Where shall we get the water in the next 2 years if most of our water bodies are drying up? That is the question for thought. And we live with animals. Yeah, we have tourist attraction sites in Uganda. Here we have I think we have a lot of tourist attraction sites which contribute a lot to our country's economy, GDP wise. I will dive more into that, but then imagine our animals are failing to get food because the environment is not suitable for them. The temperature is not okay for them. So what will happen to the animals? They will definitely migrate to cooler places, hence scarcity and diminishing of our wildlife in general. However, the good news is I always witness us trying to do something about it. I would say in Uganda, we're also doing something about it. Sorry if I'm focusing more on Uganda, but we are all African, so related to your country as well. In Uganda, we have a lot of resources which we need to really focus on. We have water, we have our natural resources, we have opportunities. As the youth, we have very many opportunities. And what are we going to do? What are these opportunities we are going to what are we going to use these opportunities for? First of all, I I advocate more for implementation than advocacy. Let us go on ground and use our water sources for different purposes. We have our water bodies. Can we use the water bodies to generate renewable energy, which is more cleaner than using, I would say, the woods, which cause a lot of dirt in our community. It's a health hazard to us as Africans. Then let us also, as youth, look out for funding opportunities for our youth-led climate initiatives. What are we doing? I am a member of the 𝐶𝐶, and it would be a very funny story on how I got that opportunity. I had to struggle to get the opportunity because I saw it as something, if I get it, it would help my initiative of schools in climate. I would get the opportunity to have the available resources to educate more people about climate change. So as the people, as the youth out there, let us dive more and concentrate on the opportunities available to us. Then let's also create rooms for our innovation. If you can do something about plastics, why not start up an initiative on that? If you can use your voice, if you can dance for climate, if you can talk about it, use that special talent or use whatever you've got to strive and advocate for climate change. As I conclude, I always advocate more for youth engagement as we fight for climate justice. And the first thing people always like to talk about is capacity building. Are we just as the people going to sit back in the background and wait for a training to happen? Are we just going to wait for a conference? Are we going to wait for a webinar to be announced for us to get this information? No. We have a lot of courses out there, climate courses. You just enroll for like a week and you get to know the initiatives to do, what you can do as a person. Let us present ourselves to the different opportunities, the different trainings, and not wait to be called upon. Then let us use whatever we have got. I've told you, dance for climate, sing for climate, do anything you can do, because the impact starts with you. And much as you're seeing it as something small, and something that's not going to escalate in the 5 years, I believe everything we do right now does not stop with us. We do something while looking at the future. Last one, let us participate in projects. Let's really prioritize hand-on skills. I work with children a lot in schools, and seeing them plant trees, seeing them go in the streets to talk to their parents about the impacts of climate change and what they can do is very, very, very fulfilling. So as the people out there, let us get on ground, not only advocacy and saying this and that, but getting more specific on the actions to be taken. And
Thank you.
thank you so much. Let me conclude.
Sheila,
Can I conclude in a second?
please do.
Sorry for going more. As I conclude this discussion, I would love us all to remember that the fight against climate change is not just a battle for the environment, but also a crusade for our survival and future sustainability. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for your insights. We don't take it for granted. Stay put, stay around as we proceed. Our next keynote speaker in 5 minutes is Bright 𝐸𝐶𝐒. I had introduced him. I will just do it quickly. He is a recent graduate in natural resource management from NAST, Ghana, focusing on agroforestry, actively involved in promoting environmental sustainability, and leading youth projects aimed at mitigating climate change. Kindly, Bright 𝐸𝐶𝐒, take the floor in 5 minutes. Kindly summarize your keynote.
All right. Thank you very much, organizers and everyone. As you mentioned, I'm Bright 𝐸𝐶𝐒, and currently I serve as the regional representative for the International Forestry Students Association in Northern Africa. So it's good to connect with each one of you. To the organizers, please, can you pardon me, because I thought my time would be somewhere 20 minutes, so I prepared presentation slides and everything. I don't know, but if it's still 5 minutes, I think I can still cope with it, and let me see how far I can go. Quickly, let's look at. Can I share the slides, or is fine this way?
You can share, and that simply you can make easier summaries. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So, today we are here to discuss about understanding climate change and its impact in Africa. So, sure, thank you once again. The question now is, why is climate change of so much concern to everyone? Lately, everyone seems to be talking about climate change, mitigation, adaptation, impact, and so many more, as some of our various speakers have already mentioned. In fact, just take a picture around you, considering that your community depends on land for sustenance. Your community depends on a river for livelihood. And just one morning you woke up and everybody in the community is in a mess. Everyone is sad, everyone is worried, granting interviews here and then. The whole issue is that your community has been flooded, and the land that all of you were depending on for sustenance has been flooded, and the plantation, everything on it, has been destroyed by the heavy flood, just as is happening in Kenya. In fact, when we mention some of these things, it looks like a storytelling or a fictional story, a fiction. But what I want to say is very, very real. Is in the reality, and climate change is affecting everyone. Everyone is being affected with climate change, and so today, by the end of the study, I hope to have covered understanding climate change in Africa, impact of climate change, adaptation and mitigation strategies, international cooperations, and policy. So, if the speakers will permit, and if the organizers will permit me, maybe a little more than 5 minutes will be okay for me, because I really want to cover a lot in some few minutes time. Sure, quickly. Climate change in simple terms, when we talk about climate change, it seems all of us are already aware, but in simple terms, to those I presume do not know and have joined to know, is when the weather patterns we are used to start changing a lot and stick around for a long time, like for many years or even decades. It's not just about getting hotter or colder. It also means changes in things like how much rain we get, which way the wind blows, and other stuff like that. These things can have really big effects on nature and how we make money and how we live our lives. And so we have so many causes of climate change, but the main causes are anthropogenic activities, that's human activities, and natural factors. When we look at the human activities, those are the primary driver of modern climate change, and is the release of greenhouse gases, GHGs, into the atmosphere as a result of human activities. These activities include the burning of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas for energy, and almighty deforestation in the industrial process and then agriculture. I really love to talk about climate change. You see, I did agroforestry in KN West in Ghana. And so I want to expand my field. I want to expand my understanding in terms of climate change. And I was really happy when this opportunity was given to me by the organizers. So I really wanted to give in all that I have got, so that at least I'll be learning from other people, and I'll be adding some to my presentations and stuff like that, just in case in future I get any platform to also speak again. And I'm really grateful for the speakers for giving me this opportunity. And so the second factor too is the natural factors. While natural factors such as volcanic eruption, variation in solar radiations, and changes in Earth orbit have influenced past climate change, they are not really significant contributors to climate and current rapid warming trend observed since the mid 20th century. Okay, good. So now we will look at what greenhouse effect is. And so quickly, greenhouse effect is a natural process that regulates Earth's temperature by trapping heat in the atmosphere. Without the greenhouse effect, Earth would be too cold to support life as we know it. In fact, the greenhouse effect, and let me finish this. Greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and water vapor absorb and radiate infrared radiation emitted by Earth's surface, effectively trapping heat in the atmosphere. However, human activities have intensified the greenhouse effect by increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, leading to enhanced trapping of heat and global. I think this is very, very well self-explanatory. There are gases in the atmosphere. To those who are not really aware of and are here to learn a lot, there are gases in the atmosphere such as methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide. These gases actually moderate the temperature of the earth, and they are in adequate supply, and is to moderate the temperature of the earth. Without them, the earth will be so cold that the living will be difficult to be done here. And so these gases moderate the temperature, making sure that it's a bit lukewarm when it's supposed to be so, it's cold when it's supposed to be so, and it's hot when it's supposed to be so. And so when there's a season for rainfall, it moderates it. When there's season for harmattan, the season for any season or occurring on this earth, those gases moderated. But a high release of these gases in the atmosphere causes great harm because they are to moderate. So the moment they are in high supply, the earth becomes so warm as we are experiencing right now. It's not magic. It's just something as a result of our own action.
Hello, Bright.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sorry once again to interject. Can you kindly summarize and round up on your keynote presentation? We are racing against time. Thank you.
All right, no problem. So quickly, let's move on. I wanted to talk about global warming, but let's move on to impact of climate change. The impact of climate change affects areas such as food security, as has already mentioned, as some of our speakers have already mentioned. So I wouldn't really talk more about it. And water resources, health risk, ecosystems, and biodiversity. And and also adaptation and mitigation strategies that we have employed to deal with the issue of climate change. We have water management adaptations, such as having implementing ways to save and manage water better to deal with changes in rainfall and less water available, and climate resilient agriculture as well is there. We have ecosystem restoration, disaster preparedness also available, and mitigation strategies such as renewable energy. Whilst we advise people to use solar energies, yes, just as it's happening in Tanzania, where everyone is speaking about stop 𝐸𝐸𝐶. And so, yes, those are some of the things as climate activists or students in climate field want to add our voice on it so that we can create awareness, and also afforestation and reforestation. And yes, so in conclusion, I'll end by saying addressing climate change uh, in Africa requires collaborative efforts and sustained commitment from all stakeholders. By implementing adaptation and mitigation strategies supported by international cooperation and policy framework, we can build resilience, reduce emission, and foster sustainable development across the continent. It is imperative to prioritize investment in renewable energies, climate resilience infrastructures, and capacity building to safeguard the well-being of our current and future generation. Together, let's continue to work towards a more sustainable and climate resilient Africa for all. In fact, thank you all very much for your attention and time.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you so much, Bright. Because we have to be sorry that we are limiting time, but we are working on a way that our speakers can also have time towards the end to speak, because we don't want to find ourselves in a manner that speakers feel swept away. Thank you so much. One thing I want to remind our participants and all of us, we can share our links on the chat site to LinkedIn, to various platforms, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, so that we follow each other and we make professional relationships from here and collaborative routes from this discussion. So it is good to follow each other, and also so that we keep the conversation moving. Our next speaker is sorry. Our next speaker is 𝐸𝐷𝐿 𝐼𝐻𝐷𝐿 is an environmental journalist from Uganda, reporting for Reuters Thomson Foundation on climate change and development, founder of Climate Women Media Action, empowering female journalists to report on climate change. Kindly, 𝐸𝐷𝐿, if you're here, take the mic and in 5 minutes, tell us something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. My name is 𝐷𝐿𝐃𝐒. I'm a journalist. I'm a founder of Climate Women Media Action. Today we are talking about climate change, and I'm glad that the people in here are mostly youth. So I'm going to go straight to it. Sharing about what are some creative ways African communities are adopting to climate change, and how can we as individuals help. My reporting as a journalist is mainly climate change, but mainly solution journalism. So this is a topic that I'm well acquainted with and talk about. When we go back to our communities as Africa and how we started and how we have managed to grow, it's entirely because our forefathers or our grandparents and our parents used what was available to make sure that they thrived, that the communities were living in a manner that was enjoyable for them. It's just that now we have adopted to technology and mindsets of wanting help all the time. But I believe Africa, if we are united or if we appreciate what we have, can actually work this out and live in communities that are happy. So how are communities in Africa dealing with this issue? It takes us back to what solutions have we adopted to keep us moving. So in communities like in Uganda mostly, okay, now what issues are we facing as communities and what are we solving? So mostly it's about flooding, poor farming methods. We have wildfires, which don't seem like they're very common in Africa, but they are common, maybe just that they're not talked about. Then we have poor farming methods, we have landslides, and all these other issues. So I'll take you back to how communities are solving flooding. I recently did a story about how a community in Uganda is solving flooding, and what they're doing is that they're using bamboo trees to make sure that the communities are kept safe. So what this community does is that they plant the bamboo trees on the river banks on both sides, 6 meters away, to make sure that the bamboo holds the water that comes as a result of the flooding of the river. And this community has now lived, I think, for a year now without the flooding. Yet they have gone through the flooding for over like 10 years. And it's interesting how the government has actually taken up the initiative that the community started, and now they're funding it as a solution. And the flooding has reduced. Part of this community for individuals, because they have advocated to the government to bring solutions, and sometimes it's slow. We know as Africans, our governments are a bit slow in solving issues that are not directly affecting them. So it's individual effort and community effort. So I've interacted with individuals who have had to elevate their houses. They've gone back to the original where we used to have huts, the grass thatched houses which are elevated above the ground, that we used to use for harvesting, keeping crops that are harvested. So now they're constructing houses of brick, but elevated above the ground, so that when the water comes, their homes are kept safe. Then when we go to farming methods, because mostly people are migrating to the urban centers and the space is little, the population is high, people are adopting to a soil-less method, which involves using hydroponics to grow crops in water. So what you do is that you use water to grow the crops. There are crops that can actually grow in water without need for soil. So they're adopting to those. There's a farmer doing rooftop gardening where you plant on the roof because there's no space, but she's also actually making money from that. So the methods, solutions to these problems that we are experiencing in our communities are actually there. Also for places where they are close to game parks and they experience some wildfires, what they do is that they burn the grass and the leaves that are dry, so that when a fire catches, it doesn't spread as far as wide to other places affecting other communities. There are many solutions, honestly, in communities, because this is what I report on. It's just that we, as climate activists, we are also advocating for climate finance, and when it comes, it doesn't go to the communities that need the finance. It goes to people in offices, people who are in governments benefiting more, so the communities don't benefit. So now, if we are educating communities on solving climate change, we have to give them solutions that they can use adopting their communities without having to purchase things like big graders and all that, using methods that have been used before that have proved to work, like the bamboo. Then encouraging solar in communities like rural areas where there's no electricity, and getting it there is harder even. Also, I don't think electric poles are made out of, in Uganda, we have them made out of wood, so entirely still, you're going back to deforestation, which is an underreported topic here also. So how can African youth play a vital role in addressing climate change? As youth, our main goal, our main core should be right now should be doing awareness, because we are young, we're exposed to information, too much information on the internet, too many books to read, but we are not reading these books. We are playing movies and doing other things. So we need to take on education and awareness as a way to be able to help our communities and also help keep our planet safer for our future, for our children. So as youth,
Thank you.
learn and read more about this issue so that we're able to solve it together, understand the whole climate science, so that you're able to create awareness in communities where people are not able to understand or read or write.
May
Then,
we kindly summarize in one
yes,
30 seconds, please?
all right. Then engage with local communities as much as you live in the city. Please find time to go to these communities in the rural areas where you have to go back to when they have to bury you or when you have to go and see your parents. When you get a solution as an innovator in climate change, please go and innovate for those communities where you come from, so that the solution starts from home and your parents are safe and your other whole community is safe. Then finally, live sustainable lifestyle choices. As youth, we are now accustomed to wanting convenience. Everything is wants to be convenient. Instead of you choosing plastic, you'd rather choose something that you can easily recycle. I would not advise that someone chooses to use plastic straws, yet there are straws made out of bamboo that can last, that you can use and reuse. And also try as much as not to accept the polythene bags from the market lady. Instead, you can just buy something that is recyclable, that you can always use, like a bag, and you keep using that instead of you packaging and filling your house, holding it with a polythene bag, and then later disposing it in the communities.
Thank
There's
you so
really
much.
much to say. Yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Sorry, you have a lot to say. I would request that
Yes, it's all right.
yeah, kindly share it and the links of your presentation on the chat site, so that members will be able to access and learn more. So stay around. We will have you to answer some few questions as we proceed. Resilient we can be, and versatile, I mean, to change. So quickly, we'll have our keynote speaker, so that in a few seconds we migrate to the panel discussion. We will have Olumide Idowo. I will shortly introduce Olumide as the climate change activist from Nigeria with over 13 years of experience, co-founder of the International Climate Change Development Initiative, aiming to create climate smart generations in Africa and addresses development disparities. Kindly, Olumide, take the space. and in 10 minutes, kindly talk to us. I thought I saw him here. I know he will join. We'll have Morrison Omoro to speak a few words of introduction. Of course, he is part of the panel discussion member, so we will allow him to say something small as we prepare to get to the panel. Morrison? Well, sorry, I don't know. He was here. Abilu Tangwa, thank you so much. I can see you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, sir.
Kindly talk to us an intro about your expectation, but I know we are engaging you immediately on the panel discussion. But tell us something as an intro on climate concepts. 2 minutes.
Thank you for having me in this webinar session. Thanks, Sustainable Africa, for organizing this webinar for us to share ideas on understanding climate change in Africa and climate change's impacts in Africa. This is a very topical issue, especially as a continent that depends heavily on agriculture, a vulnerable sector. So it is a very timely topic for Africans to really diagnose and look at the way forward and how we can forge ahead as a global community. So thank Sustainable Africa for giving me this opportunity. I'm waiting for my time to come and shed more light on why the Africa as a continent is more vulnerable, and the way forward, how we can forge ahead as an international community to solve these challenges and make our continent a resilient one for the development of the future generation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Abilu. We have time. You will have an opportunity, and indeed, every member and speaker will have an opportunity now, at least, to also add more insights to our topic today. Our next speaker is, I'm glad he is back. It is Olomide Idogu. I did introduce him. Kindly, Olomide, go ahead. We had introduced you, and members are aware. You're giving us a keynote.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you so much, Sustainable Africa, for giving me this wonderful and great opportunity to speak and to also, put us in an energizing way when we talk about the issue of climate change challenges across Africa. And I'm going to be spending nothing less than 5 to 6 minutes so that we can be able to capture our conversation. So for me, we all know that climate change is another issue that affects every corner of the world, and the Africa region is no exception. So the continent of Africa we know that it's already experiencing the impact of climate change, and the challenges has posed a lot of issue both to the local, to the private, and even the issue of circular economy, from the issue of rising temperature to challenging, changing rainfall pattern, and all the issue that we see that we call the consequences of the environment that affect the environment, affect the economy, and even livelihood of people across Africa. Some of the speakers have actually highlighted a lot of things during their conversation, and I can tell you that one of the most notable part of climate change in Africa is the increase of the average temperature that we are seeing across countries in Africa. And over the past century, Africa has actually experienced a lot of temperature that have high rates than even the global average. And we know the second two elements of fighting is the grass that suffers it, and that is what is happening to Africa presently. This rising temperature has also led to more frequent and intense heat waves. And we see back in Africa, a lot of people are going through this issue when the rain season is supposed to come. We are not seeing it. And that's why these big challenges are causing a lot of issues, problems that even the members of state are talking about how we can mitigate and solve the issue of climate issue. And so it's very important for us to know that the changing rain pattern, rainfall pattern are another major challenges associated with climate change in Africa. And when you see when the rain is supposed to come, it's not coming. And this is affecting children, affecting young people, affecting market women. And so even some regions are actually experiencing increase in rainfall, and while some regions are suffering from rainfall. So this leads to more frequent and even severe floods for some areas. And when flood takes away your property, you see there's going to be a mental problem, issues, health-related issues start coming in, and people start losing their properties. So these floods can also cause widespread destruction of infrastructure, displacement of communities, and even loss of lives. On the other hand, we see that the region in Africa is facing a prolonged drought. And if you go to the eastern part of Africa, go to the southern part of Africa, you see all these things resulting to water scarcity, crop failure, and even increased vulnerability to hungers and poverty. And they say, when they talk about energy poverty, talk about, poverty that's eating deep into the progress and continuation of people's life, then the issue of climate change setting. And we start seeing a lot of solutions and vision that are coming up that are not really solving the African problem. But the impact of climate change also extends to the issue of ecosystem and even the biodiversity in Africa region. So this issue of rising temperature, that is one of the biggest contributors, and even the changing rain pattern form has actually bring a lot of issue on the ecosystem, and this is leading to the loss of biodiversity and even the extinction of certain species. The way it's affecting human, it's affecting animal, and it's affecting every nook and cranny of Africa. And this loss of biodiversity has serious consequences for the balance of ecosystem, as well as for the livelihood of communities, and depends on the natural resources for their survival. And you remember very well, talking from an experience from Africa, Nigeria, which we have a lot of natural resources, but we are still facing this adverse effect of climate change, and a lot of people crying to see how we can get solution, get opportunity for investment for young people, for different people across Africa. So in addition to the issue of environmental impact, climate change has also posed significant challenges to the economy of Africa. And that is why you see that even to do trade between country to country is causing a lot of problems. And every one of you, just to digress a little bit, when you check businesses or when you check traveling within Africa, is expensive. But when you travel out of Africa, it's cheaper. Are we really talking about how this is affecting us? Agriculture in Africa is causing a lot of issues. We are seeing the agriculture sector, which is supposed to employ a huge portion of the population, is also particularly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. So the food we eat, the clothes we wear, and the place we stay is one of the biggest assets that we need to look and solve when it comes to the issue of climate change. So changes into rainfall pattern, issue of temperature resulting to reduce of crops, all these things are increasing pests, issues, and there's a lot of decrease in livestock production. So these challenges have actually, a potential to undermine food security and even increase poverty level in the region. So we need to do something. We need to look at how can we build the economic inequality in Africa. how vulnerable people, populations such as women, children, and even marginalized community are disappropriately affected, which my friend, some speakers have said here. So, how do we start looking at lack of resources and capacity to adapt to change conditions? How can I from Nigeria, you from Kenya, you from Uganda, start making them more more talking about how can we look at these consequences of climate change and build synergy and start looking at solutions that can address the challenges of climate change across the region, but require multifaceted approach. So it's time for us to start looking at to adaptation measure, such as improving our water management system, promoting climate resilience agricultural practices, and even investing in renewable energy, because a lot of power poverty is happening in Africa. It's very crucial for us to build resilience in the face of changing climate conditions so that international cooperation, financial support, and even assist to African countries in implementing adaptation and mitigation strategy. I don't want to take our time. Let me just end by saying that it is important for us to recognize that the role of African communities, in finding innovative solutions to climate change challenges is very, very important. Indigenous knowledge and local practices can actually, contribute to the, sustainable adaptation strategy that we are looking at. And we need to start making our leaders accountable for the solution they are bringing to Africa, whether it is locally driven, whether it's supporting actions, helping young people to drive innovation, building investment opportunity, and we start looking at how can we address these challenges that requires comprehensive approach and even include adaptation measures of international corporations and start talking about how we can mitigate the impact of climate change and build a more sustainable action resilience for Africa and see where Africa can go to. So, my friends, colleagues, it's also very important for us to start talking about what are the investment opportunity in climate change? What are the investment opportunity in taking away energy poverty, taking away actions that are not sustainable, that are not meant for us to use as an Africa? So, climate change is real. I said that when two elements are fighting, grass opposes it. So, who are the grass people? Who are the two elements? How do we solve the climate issues in Africa? How can the challenges turn to opportunities for growth, for opportunities, and for improvement? How can we make our leaders accountable for the actions they do to Africa? I want to end here and say that thank you very much, and hope you all have a great deliberation. And I'm going to be here to be listening to our panelists to see how we can also provide solution to climate issue. Thank you very much, Sustainable Africa. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Olumide. Thank you so much to everyone. And one of the key points that has been hammered by all the key notes speakers is that climate change is real and it's affecting us directly. We are not only seeing it, but we are experiencing it. It is real and it is happening to us today. And that its impacts are multifaceted. We are seeing it in the economy. We are seeing it on our livelihoods. It's a matter of food and nutrition. It's a matter of ecosystems, resilience. It's a matter of extinction. Would we want to be a generation that is going to be remembered that they had lions, but we no longer see lions roaming around the forest? Or they were once baboons, and baboons are no longer dead. So thank you so much to our. Let me welcome you because I am seeing also people joining in on this call. So the discussion started with keynote speakers. Now we are delving into the panelists, and after that we'll come to the question and answer segment. You might want to know that today the session is focusing on answering 5 key questions. What is climate change and why is it happening? And how does it affect farming, water, or maybe wildlife in Africa? And what are some creative ways African communities are adapting to climate change, and how can we as individuals help? Then also we are looking into answering questions like what mechanisms can we use to fight climate change and the role that renewable energy has in this fight, and what can governments do in order to support these efforts. Some of the questions again are, what are the major challenges and opportunities for addressing climate change in Africa? Like what the previous speaker was saying, what is it that we are doing and what opportunities lies ahead within the African continent from this crisis that we are facing? And also, how can African youth get involved in advocating and taking action on climate change? So I am sure with all these key notes presentation, you have been thrilled. I'm sure you have been energized so that you can actually get more explanations, discussions, and even case studied from our panelists. So without wasting much of our time, let me leave this time to Kelvin, who will introduce us to our panelists, and they can take this space. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Immediately, the discussion is becoming now hotter. Our next session is panel, and I will introduce our panelists by name. We have Tangwa Abilu Zenjo. We have Sam Mwezezo, Faraja Mahadi, and Regina Samson M. Those will be our panelists, but it does not mean that the speakers, including Olomide and others, will not come in. They will always come in to add and also to chip in. So we will start with the first question, and as my colleague had already introduced, we are in the middle of a climate disruption. So our first question we want to address right now is what are some of the creative ways African communities are adapting to climate change, and how can we as individuals help? And I would allow Abilu to go first.
Thank you very much for asking that very important question. Africa as an economy that depends heavily on agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of the economy of Africa. That's around 85% of the African population depends heavily on agriculture. So the African community are demonstrating a remarkable resilience and innovations in adapting to changes posed by climate change. Let me highlight some of the creative means through which the African continents are doing in fighting or creating a resilient agrarian communities for climate change. Adopting drought resilience crops. That's something like crops like cassavas. African communities are embracing drought resilience crops to fight against climate change. There's also the implementation of sustainable farming practices in form of agroforestry. Agroforestry is a land use management pattern that involves the cultivation of crops and planting of trees so that each of them work in synergy. Each one benefit from each other as trees act as carbon reservoirs, then trees and crops act together to create a friendly environment for biodiversity to thrive in. So the African communities are also implementing water harvesting conservation techniques like creating of dams, building of catchments, and so on and so forth. So we are also engaging or encouraging African communities to diversify their livelihood and engage in ecotouristic attraction facilities that will go a long way in creating in accelerating the conservation of our environment. We are also encouraging, or the Africa is also doing heavily in embracing sustainable energy project, even though the prices of those solar panels, they are still very, very expensive. So I'm actually encouraging the panelists, everyone, all the stakeholders within the continent to be pushing their leaders, their community leaders, their government, to ensure or look for means through which we can subsidize most of these renewable energy facilities for the poor masses of the African continent, especially those that are found within the rural area of Africa, to be able to enjoy the benefit and process of sustainable energy. We should also, the African continent, even though it's still limited, they are strengthening early warning system to disasters like floods, drought, desertification. As the other speakers have highly mentioned, if you look at what is happening or what has been happening for the past years within the Horn of Africa, within the Lake Chad Basin, and within the Sahel region, you can see there are signs, there are evidence that we have not been doing much, because those parts of Africa, those areas, there are the most vulnerable communities that are heavily hit by climate change. So the government should, the African continent, and the international stakeholders, we should be pushing them to invest in this area, because when you look at it, majority of the people from this area, they are moving out, they are migrating out of the continent. They are migrating. So we need to invest in this area. We need to create a favorable condition for them in order for the agricultural sectors to strive. So, and there is also a critical area where we should invest. Agriculture, as we all said, is a very, very critical sector for the economy of Africa. When I was carrying out my research on the impacts of climate change, the impacts of post-harvest management on the socio-economic development of Kumbo subdivision, I highlighted, or I discovered, a very, very critical way through which the African continent can actually invest to solve the problem of food insecurity of Africa. My chapter 2 of my dissertation dive much on the sources, the causes, the manifestation, and impacts of post-harvest losses in Kumbo subdivision. And you will bear with me that climate change is causing a lot of implication, or is creating a lot of challenges when it comes to the attainment of the 17 sustainable development goals earmarked for 2030. So the African people, they invest much on agriculture, but it is not enough to be talking about diverting more investment on the agricultural sector while we don't think about the post-management challenges. So I'm encouraging everyone, be advocating within your various countries, within your various communities. Encourage these farmers, or we can train them, capacity building. We should be encouraging them that they should divert more resources on post-harvest management, because according to the Food and Agricultural Organization, around 1/3 of food that is produced is lost within the food chain supply, and it shows that agriculture create, when we produce food that it is not consumed, we waste resources that went into producing those food. So we should be encouraging most of our agricultural stakeholders to diversify, to divert more resources on post-harvest management, because post-harvest losses is also a problem in creating climate change, because it creates a very potent gas, methane, which is even, according to science, it's even more dangerous than carbon dioxide. So thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I believe education is a very, very critical pillar in climate change. Individual actions, we should forge ahead and work together for the benefit of the continent and the international community. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Sustainable Africa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abilu, for that very particular insights. Stay there. We'll come back to you. Now, Morrison, if you're here, Abilu has talked about some of the evident activities that African communities are doing, including the dams and also digging larger tanks to at least in a section of trying to protect harvest water and know that it does not cause more harm. The Do you think these kind of activities are sustainable, or are we doing short-term activities that may not actively act on climate change?
Okay, so I believe these we're not doing too much sustainable pay attention to, especially when we consider the crucial place we are right now as Africans, in the world today. I personally believe that these things are needed, and I dare say we need more innovations. We need more innovations. What has been done needs to continue, and it needs to be upscaled. We need to get more governments and more possible funders to upscale them, and then get more people involved, because these solutions are needed. Part of one of the things one of the speakers highlighted in her nation when she began was how that her country has been experiencing certain challenges, that I think that there's currently flooding in Kenya, in some parts of Kenya, and some of these initiatives that we're advocating for are preventive. Some of these initiatives will prevent and will help manage and mitigate these crisis situations. So I personally believe, to answer your question, these things they need to continue, and they need to be upscaled, and we need to find a way to get more people involved. While listening to some of the speakers earlier, I was a bit concerned about the percentage of people who are currently activists for climate and advocates for climate, comparing that percentage with the percentage of people we have in Africa. The truth is, we have such a short time when we consider the targets we have for 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the crisis that keeps multiplying in our continent, the environmental crisis. And I think that we need more people on board taking up these issues and creating more solutions, because believe it or not, there's a knowledge divide. Really. The percentage of people who are advocating and the populace. I'm speaking from Nigeria, a country of over 200 million people. And I'm saying this because I know what it would mean for more people to be involved in activism and in advocacy. I believe it's beyond what we do as advocates. It's beyond us. It's more of a leadership role to inspire the people who will cause the change. Nigeria is a country of over 70% youth demography. And I can only imagine what this would mean if we have more people taking up these solutions. So, like it was earlier mentioned, there are local adaptative measures that are already in existence, and there's a need for knowledge sharing. There are communities. I think the lady who spoke earlier referred to how their forefathers lived with elevated homes, but somehow, as technology and advancement continued, people forgot about that. But she said, while she was speaking, that they're returning back to some of those solutions that their forefathers had, been practicing. So there's a need for knowledge sharing, and there's a need to upscale these solutions that we're already providing, because there's a crucial need. And as a people, there's a need to build resilience, stronger resilience, and getting more people on board with us for what we're trying to achieve with climate change adaptation and mitigation. Thank you.
Morrison, on adding on that, the question asks you about sustainability. You remember the COP15 countries, especially the global north, promised
Yes.
about
Yes.
100 billion US dollars. And they
Yes.
said that they would meet that pledge by 2020. Do you think that has been
Yes.
achieved? And
Oh,
you know, we have the three polluters of the world: the United States, China, and India.
yeah.
Do you
Yes.
think that they have committed themselves, and have they met the pledge? And I think that is how we want to understand whether the sustainability
Okay.
in on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely to answer your question, it hasn't been done. I'm aware that the loss and damage conversation, the climate change loss and damage fund, and the conversations around that have uh, they've been talking about it. It's been a conversation for COP, and it's been ongoing, but we see little or no implementation in our countries, in our communities. And like you pointed out in your question, Africa bears a huge percentage of climate change impacts. And we are not, and our contribution to pollution is nothing compared to what most of these nations, like you mentioned, have contributed to the problem. And so it is something that we really need to make decisive decisions, especially with mobilizing our people and our governments and our negotiators, because these things have not been done. And when you raise the issue of sustainability, this is something that must happen. For climate finance, whatever solutions we're advocating for, suggesting, they will need finance to push them. And so without this fund that we're talking about, without them fulfilling their promise, without action, without proper implementation, we can't sustain any of these things we've talked about because they're capital intensive. As I'm talking, I'm thinking about energy, for example. Pollution, a huge chunk of pollution, climate change, greenhouse gases emission, it comes from industrial activities, from greenhouse gases from fossil fuel combustion. And so when we're thinking about solutions, we can't escape energy, and energy is capital intensive. Whatever we want to do, even with agriculture, we will need some kind of power to upscale them so that they can be sustainable. And so these things will require funding. And till now, from when this promise was made, we can see little, I would say not much has changed. And I feel that there needs to be stronger advocacy from African nations, maybe a different approach, maybe more representation from the rural communities that are first-hand victims of climate change impact. But whichever way we choose to address this issue, it is something that must be addressed. For these solutions to be sustainable, this loss and damage fund, these promises that have been made must be fulfilled to the African people. It must be fulfilled to the African people. So that's what I have to say regarding your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Stay there. As we proceed, we will need your insights more. Now, Faraja, some of the mitigation activities Africa as a continent is adapting is renewable energy. Could you kindly tell us how are communities making use of renewable energy to mitigate these harsh climatic conditions that we are facing right now, and what is the future?
Can you repeat the question, please?
I have said that renewable energy is in the mouths of Africans right now, and we've had many governments talk about it, and also international communities discussing that it is the another one of the major mitigation processes that can happen for climate change. What do you think from African perspective? Uh, how are renewable energies helping communities to adapt to climate change, and what is the future?
Everyone, can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. I think renewable energy sources has been a little bit of a talk through the mitigations of the climate change, as renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydro, and geothermal power, they provide a sustainable alternative to traditional fossil fuel-based energy sources. So in Africa, where the access of electricity is still limited for many people, and renewable energy offers an opportunity to a leapfrog and maybe and reliance to an expensive of fossil fuels. For instance, I will say maybe in Rwanda. Rwanda has become a global leader for solar power and implementing
Faraja,
the national.
sorry to interrupt, Faraja. I mean this
Yes.
question, panelists and the speakers and members, these questions are not meant for individual panelists. It is across. Any panelist and speaker can come in and give insights. Thank you. Proceed.
Okay. Can I move the
Yes.
panelist?
Continue. Did the Faraja leave? I just clarified something that these questions are not for individual panelists. It is across. Faraja, you can go on.
Okay, so I will talk on how these renewable energies can improve or can be of great use into mitigating the effects of climate change. And we can see that the renewable energy can improve food security by just providing the irrigation water for agriculture in the arid regions like maybe Sahel, and help farmers to grow crops during the dry seasons. So I think this can be used as a way to mitigate the effects of climate change, as for the renewable energies to be used in providing or in agriculture. And this renewable energy can increase an energy independence and reduce reliance on imported fossil fuels. We have seen countries like South Africa and Egypt, whereby significant renewable energy potential are heavily dependent on important fossil fuels for their electricity needs. So by investing in renewable energy sources domestically, we can reduce a dependence on the foreign oil and improve our energy, hence mitigating these climate change challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would want, though he's not in the panel, Olumide to say something on this because through his 13 years experience, he can tell us what renewable energy is capable of in regards to climate mitigation. Olumide? Seems he's not here. Samuel Sezo, kindly respond to the similar question and give us your insights.
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Well, I'd like to first apologize. I was slightly late because of the time difference. I've listened to this insightful conversation from each and everyone, and I just wanted to actually mention something about the renewable energy. Knowing that Africa has a huge potential in that aspect, and has a substantial new and renewable resources, most of which actually are under exploited. only about 70% of Africa renewable hydro potential has been harnessed. And I think it's a huge opportunity for actually the continent to actually invest more and, to learn about what's actually could be the best solution to Africa, since the globe and the entire planet has actually been threatened by the climate change. Also, I'm seeing this aspect actually being one of the most that people don't really talk about, because climate change in Africa seems to be like, a conversation for the other part of the world. And people seem to not be concerned, because when we talk about climate change in Africa, people are like, okay, this is just a problem for the, for the colonials, or maybe for the people from America or whatever continent that they come from. So I truly believe it's a threat that we should be taking seriously. But also, when you look at the consequences of climate change in different part of the world, because I'm currently in Kenya, that's where I'm based. And when you look at the flood, when you look at the rains and stuff, you can tell that this problem is coming more and more dangerous, and we have to find solutions. I will actually emphasize and give more intel about the discussion, since I've just arrived, and I was actually trying to gather and listen to this amazing intervention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hello? Hello?
Olumide, you can talk to us.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So for me, like the role of renewable energy in Africa is very crucial, and this also are one of the solutions that actually help us to fight against climate change. And when you look at how it's helping job creation and economic development, is something that's very, very powerful, and also helping us to, I talk about investment opportunity. How can we create investment opportunity around financing and investment? Because it's especially coming from a country like Nigeria, that we are facing a lot of energy poverty. The renewable energy is one of the powerful, solution to build capacity and support research to, that can be able to help us to, look for a way whereby government can invest in training programs for people to build their capacity and develop their skills workforce, And also, when you look at the issue of commitment, a lot of people talk about energy access, they talk about affordability. So what Africa is actually lacking when it comes to the issue of electricity, renewable energy technology can offer a solution, that able to decentralize and sustainable solution to provide electricity across every African continent, countries. So if we can look at the investment in renewable energy infrastructure, the government can be able to improve energy access and make it more affordable for the citizen. The affordability is one of the biggest problems. And how do we support the government to play a vital role? We need to start looking at, I mentioned this as well the last time, I said, international cooperation and partnership. The Sustainable Energy for All have been doing a lot across Africa. How do we make sure that these people work with the government, development agency, and see how we can build access to technical experts, and also deploy of renewable energy solution and support the African continent transition to low carbon economy. So if we can look at this issue critically, it will help us to promote sustainable development and even economic growth. So renewable energy is key, but we need to localize, and we need to build a strong energy independency and security for our energy transition. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olumide, for that insights. Next, now, Regina, if you're here, what are opportunities despite of this harsh climatic change that we're experiencing? What are the opportunities we have moving forward as an African continent to mitigate further disruption? Meanwhile, as Regina organizes herself, if she's here, if she's not, we can have Otto, or if Otto Sheila is here. Meanwhile, members, you can kindly take your time on the chat box and fill the questionnaire for feedback, so that we learn what to do and improve next. So it will be very helpful for us. So do we have Sheila Otto here to at least make a comment on the opportunities? And indeed, any panelists, you can raise your hand and talk about opportunities we have for Africa despite of the climate challenge we're facing right now. Fine. I will call Asilu to give a closing remark. Give us Asilu is here. Salisu, sorry, I'm talking about Salisu. Adam, Salisu. Abilu, in 1 minute, what are the opportunities for Africa in regards to climate mitigation process?
Okay, thank you for giving me that opportunity again. Let me first highlight the challenges. Let's first of all look at the challenges. The African continent as a continent with a lot of potential when it comes to the implementation of sustainable development has a lot of challenges. When you look at the issue of limited financial resources and access to climatic finance is still a very, very big challenge in implementing some of these solutions to climate change in the African continent. We are also lacking the infrastructural development. That's why, to me, I think every one of us, the African community, the African youth, we should be holding our leaders responsible, because I think they are not doing enough. They should invest more on research and developmental tools that fit African reality when it comes to the implementation of most of this technology. They should invest heavily within this technology to make it possible for the African youth to do their studies in Africa and develop or invent African tools that can fight most of these climatic challenges. However, Africa also presents significant opportunities for climate change. We have a very abundant renewable resources such as solar, wind, and geothermal. We also have a very, very dynamic, innovative grassroots youths. I think even though they are very limited, but I think they are very powerful. We should encourage them. Each and every youth should be a climatic activist. Because I believe small actions are very good. You may not realize it, but we are actually doing a wonderful job. We should be doing it collectively. Collective spirit and the spirit of volunteerism is very, very important. We also have a rapid growing youth population and increasing digital connectivity within the African continent. We are having a very, very dynamic youth, one of the active growing population in Africa. So I believe that if our leaders can invest in these youths to discourage them from moving out of the continent, in maybe 10 years from now, I think we will be doing a lot when it comes to creating and mitigating environment for climate change, and Africa will become a very, very lucrative place and a very, very attractive continent for everyone, even from those from the north. So thank you for giving me the opportunity again, and I thank Sustainable Africa for giving us this platform to raise our voices. Thanks very much.
Yeah, sorry I was a bit late. We had wonderful speaker that they've done wonderfully to this topic, climate change, renewable energy. If you look at it, a lot of things have been said so far, very importantly. But experts have looked at this climate change from different diverse angles. We don't longer talk about papers. Let's bring it close to people so that people will know how it feel like, how it look like, and how we are contributing, and how we can mitigate it. For instance, if you have any undeveloped land close to you, or you have a bar land, that is a land that is road that are not tied, open land, you find out that from the last 3 years, those roads have been washed away by water. Gradually, they are turned into eruptions. These are climate change signs. If you have a land that a bar land, so as every individual who could contribute to this, who contribute to the mitigation of climate change by simply planting the trees. Develop land. Let's encourage our colleagues to develop undeveloped land. Let's plant trees in our homes, encourage people to plant trees, the same thing, encourage other people to manage their waste and other things. Most importantly, again, the last topic we'll talk about renewable energy. Of course, extensively it has been treated well, but also look at it again that simple. In fact, it's less cost effective, and it saves your lives. It saves your lives because if you have if you are using renewable energy, you don't need to be coming out in your home. Once you have your solar panel, you are okay. You are too good. In fact, you are too good. It is easier, it's cheapest. Even if fuel price is rising, you don't need to panic. You're contributing to the mitigation of climate changes. You are also contributing to renewable energy campaign by just using simple renewable energy. So these are simple things that if we continue to engage ourselves in, we're doing great. The campaign starts from yourself. Small thing, you are making a great change. Your neighbor and every other person. In fact, you create great change. So with this, I think we've come to the end of this program. We've done well. Thank you for your listening. We appreciate everybody's effort, the speakers, the attendants. We appreciate your effort, and I think we'll be having next seminar next week. God willing, we hope to see your faces again. Thank you all.
Thank you, Adam Salisu. I think now it is my pleasure to welcome our Director of Programs, Mr. Abubakar Baba, to give, to conclude actually our webinar. It has been a success. Thank you so much. Baba.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon from here. As we conclude this session, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to each and every one of you for your active engagement and thoughtful contribution. Today, we have explored the intricate challenges and profound impacts of climate change in Africa, gaining valuable insights into the urgent need for action. Our discussions highlighted the critical role of renewable energy and the significance of, towards climate action in Africa. And your participation has been instrumental in fostering a rich and enlightening dialogue. It is through such collaborative efforts that we can catalyze meaningful progress and forge a sustainable future for our continent. So thank you once again for your valuable contribution, and I am confident that our collective effort will lead to a tangible and lasting impact. Let us forge ahead with determination and resolve together. We can make a difference. Thank you all.
Thank you.